Hey warriors, and welcome to the latest episode of the Sick and Sickening podcast. Today's episode is episode 21, and I am joined by Ben Jacobs, who is a neurology registrar, to speak about all things MS and genetics. So sit back, join me with a cup of tea on the sofa to spill some tea with Roxy on the realities of MS. Hey Ben, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good, Roxy. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. It's my pleasure to have you today. Could you let everyone know a little bit about yourself and what you
Yeah,
do?
amazing. So I'm Ben. I'm a neurology registrar. So I'm doing a few years of training before we become a consultant, and I'm doing research into MS genetics. So I've just started a PhD looking at MS genetics in underrepresented populations, and that's why I'm here today.
Well, thank you for being here. It's a really good topic to cover. I know a lot of warriors are always interested in the genetic link between themselves and MS in their families. I wanted to ask you, why did you choose the topic of MS and
Yeah, it's a great
genetics?
question. It's really important is the main answer. So everything that we know about MS and genetics, almost everything has been derived from studies in mainly white people of European ancestry. So big studies from the US, UK. And in all of those studies, people of other ancestries, so people from African and South Asian ancestries, have generally been left out. And there are some scientific reasons for that. The analysis is a little bit more complicated, especially for people of African ancestry. But ultimately, it's probably because of wider biases in terms of who is invited to participate in medical research. And so I was kind of getting into MS, getting into genetics, and reading all these studies, and I was pretty appalled actually by that underrepresentation of non-European groups in MS research. So I thought it'd be quite a good thing to try and rectify.
I agree. There has been underrepresentation. As I speak to people in the wider community, we're getting a change now, which is great, and seeing people want to participate more in studies to get those results because we haven't previously been involved in them. What are your personal goals for this project?
Personal goals really is I want to try and make a study that gets in contact with people from these underrepresented groups and gets them involved in MS research. I think that the main thing really is just improving representation. And through that and through doing stuff like this and through meeting people, we're hoping to kind of shatter some of the boundaries that have got in the way of people taking part in research. In terms of scientific goals, there's quite a few things that we want to find out. And the main kind of scientific question is, are the genes that make you more or less susceptible to getting MS, are they the same in people from other ancestries, or do they differ a little bit in terms of the effects that they have? So that's the main kind of scientific question, and the main kind of non-scientific aim is just getting people from underrepresented groups more represented at the MS research table.
What do we already know about MS, genetics and diversity, or the lack thereof in the neurology industry?
So the studies that have been done generally have supported the view that a lot of the genes are the same. So there have been some studies in people who describe themselves as African American. There have been some studies in South Asian participants with MS. And generally, those have shown that most of the big hitters of MS genes, so most of the genes that have quite a big effect, have quite similar effects across different ancestries. Interestingly, those studies, even though they're quite small, have shown that there might be some interesting differences as well. The problem is because they're so small, it's difficult to make these conclusions with any kind of certainty. So one of our aims is to do this on a bigger scale than has been done before and combine our results with those previous studies so that we can further some of those interesting similarities and differences.
What does the study itself entail if someone wants to get involved?
Hopefully quite a simple study to take part in. So we're going to mainly do online recruitments. People will sign up via the websites. You'll be asked to do a consent form, just saying you're happy to take part and a bit of detail about what that will entail. And then we'll ask a few questions about you, about your MS, nothing too intrusive. But what we do want to ask is your NHS number so we can confirm your diagnosis and have a look at your medical records. And we also want your address. And the reason we want that is so you can then get a spit kit in the post, And when we send that through, it's a little saliva kit, it's a little tube basically. You spit in that, send it back to us, and we process that to look at what genetic markers people have. So it's really two things. It's sign up online via the website to do the questionnaire and then do a saliva kit in the post.
I wanted to know, like, do we know why nothing like this has taken place before?
Oh, yeah. Well, typically it has been done before. So people have tried this. They've tried it in California with a big cohort of African-American people with MS. People have tried it in India. It's been done across the world on kind of smaller scale. But the big European study had over 60,000 people with MS. Nothing like that has been done. Why is it not been done on that scale? I think a few things. Genuine differences in how common MS is. So people of South Asian, East Asian ancestry, it is rarer. Differences in kind of how easy it is for people to get to clinic, to get a diagnosis. So there might be some diagnostic biases going on. Clinicians might be more reluctant to make the diagnosis in certain ethnic groups if there's a perception that MS is a lot less common in those groups, whether that's right or wrong. But I think also that there are some scientific reasons that I kind of alluded to earlier. So particularly people of African ancestry actually have way more genetic diversity than people of European ancestry. So that it does make some of the analysis a bit more complicated. And that's an incredibly interesting thing to learn about. And it's an incredibly beneficial thing to learn about, not just for people of African ancestry, but for everyone. But it does make the analysis a bit more tricky. And it means that all of the tools that people use for European genetic studies, so the way that you actually physically detect the genetic markers and the software tools for analyzing the data, we need to make those better. Those tools have all been designed with European populations in mind, and people of African ancestry generally are less well represented in all of those tools. So that's a few reasons. There are loads. There are some good reasons, some bad reasons.
Speaking to my fellow MS warrior, especially of African descent, a lot of us are getting diagnosis either later, we've been misdiagnosed, and actually we're seeing more MS warriors of colour being diagnosed. So I don't know if that means there's more of us or more of us know what we're dealing with autoimmune wise. So I've been able to connect with more people as my journey's gone on over time, and in relation to people that come from an African ancestry, which is something that I felt was very different to 10 years ago when I was trying to connect with the same community.
Just to say, even 10 years ago, like you were saying, we were basically taught in medical school that this was a disease of mainly people of white European descent. And it's really only in the last 10, 20 years that we've got the data showing that actually, if you live in a country with good healthcare access, good MRIs, probably people of African ancestry have pretty much the same MS risk as people of European ancestry. So I think what you're saying rings pretty true, both personally in terms of what you're saying, people I see in clinic, but also in terms of the data. There's now good data to support that.
Another question that came up was, how long would they see results from partaking in a study like this?
I think it's important for me to emphasize that people who agree to participate in this generally won't hear the results back. So this is a research study, and the genetic markers, the variants that we're looking at, they're all a research tool. So we don't know what those mean yet in terms of your risk of MS or your risk of anything else. And so it would be irresponsible of us to report those back. So people generally won't get direct personal information back from the study. The caveat to that is that if we do find a genetic variant that's strongly associated with the disease, so for example, there's a variant that we might look at that really increases your risk of having high cholesterol, and that's something that is important to know about because you can take a medication, you can take a statin, you can exercise more, and that can reduce your risk of a heart attack. So if we find one of those genetic variants, we will tell you about it. And if, with your consent, we would refer you on to a genetics counselling service within the NHS to discuss kind of what it means and what steps we could take. The chances of that happening are really rare, really rare, but we've put that in place just because we're finding out new things about genetic variants all the time. And so we want to kind of future-proof the study so that if we find something in your data which is alarming that you should know about because it's going to affect your health, we want the ability to tell you about it. So we put some safeguards in place to make sure that we do that in a responsible way.
So for the warriors, would I say this is more of a I don't want to say a charitable act, but more that you're doing this for the future MS warriors behind us to find out the variants to maybe help them. Maybe we wouldn't see overall all the benefits from it, but if our children or family members or people that are younger than us growing up get MS, then these studies would help them in the future.
Yeah, completely. I think, like most research, actually, the person who's taking part in the research often doesn't benefit a huge amount for them. It's a hugely charitable act, and it's hopefully going to help future people with MS, like you say.
So I want to ask, because I spoke to a few warriors before having an interview with you, and a lot of them asked me like who would have access to their sample and how their sample would be used in the future.
Yeah, great question. Important question to know about. So samples will all be stored at Queen Mary, all highly secure. So only the immediate research team, me, Dr. Dobson, Prof. Morris, the other key research team involved, only they will have access to it, and other QM lab members who are working on the project. So we'll keep the samples for the 10 years. That's the study duration. And then at the end of the 10 years, they'll be destroyed. We might apply, so if new technology comes out to do this in a better way, we might apply for a new ethics application to essentially reapply that new technology. So to do the same thing, but in a slightly more detailed way. But at the end of the period or the end of that new study, the samples will be destroyed. No one else will have access to them. All of the data will be stored in an encrypted fashion on the Queen Mary computers. And we will share some data with the broader research community. That's mainly so that other people can bring their bright ideas to the table, and we can get as much from people's generous donation of their samples as possible. But everything that we share outside of Queen Mary will be in a fully anonymized format. So people won't be able to go back and work out which sample came from who. So that will be all a fully anonymized, fully secure format.
And if I was to take part in this study, how would I benefit from it, or how would future MS warriors benefit from supplying a sample?
Yeah, so as an individual, you're not likely to benefit directly. I have to I have to be straight with people. Like a lot of research, we're not going to report back your genetic findings unless we find one of these findings that is clinically significant. So, as in something that is very bad that you need to know about. But people taking part in research often kind of want to know directly what they're going to get back, and that's reasonable. And the honest answer here is that you're not going to get anything directly back. So this is an act of charity, really. And obviously, some people get a warm glow from doing charity, and that's a great thing, and that's to be encouraged. But no, you're not going to benefit directly from this. This is an act of charity. Your second question was, how's this going to benefit the wider MS community or future people with MS? That's the real reason for doing this, I think. So our hope is that we will find genes that predict your risk of MS that apply to people of non-European ancestries. And that will fill in loads of gaps. It might be the same as what we know already for people of European ancestry. It might be a little bit different. It might be totally different. But whatever we find, we will be able to take that forward, and it will improve how we diagnose MS. It will improve maybe how we predict it in the future. It might improve how we develop treatments in the future. And importantly as well, it sends a clear message to the broader research community that actually you can include underrepresented populations. This is doable. It takes a bit of different styles of working, but it's very doable. And actually, it's not a good enough excuse anymore to say that it's difficult to find people for underrepresented populations. So I hope that this will benefit both people with MS and the broader community in the future, but also maybe the broader research community will take heed and will start to do more work with underrepresented populations. And actually, this is being done in other diseases. So other diseases are ahead of MS, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, all these kinds of diseases have really learned that this is an incredibly important thing to do, both ethically and kind of societally, but also scientifically for everyone.
If I wanted to get involved or be part of this study, can you just let everyone know what would be the next steps I would take?
Sign up online. We'll put the link at the end of the podcast. It's really easy. Hopefully, I've designed it. So if it's not easy, let me know. And you basically just sign up online. You'll be asked to do the consent form online. you do the questionnaire, you put in your address, and then we send you the spit kit. Then you send it back in the post. We'll send it all in a fully kind of prepaid envelope that you just send back to us. So that's the simple way of doing it. The other way of doing it is that we've got a few collaborating sites across the UK. So we've got Queen Mary is where we're based, but we've also got UCL, King's, Romford, Birmingham, Leeds, Nottingham. And at all of those places, routinely when people are in clinic, they're going to be able to sign up by the research nurses. So if people need help with filling out the form, we're going to have a paper version of everything. So you can do it all, paper consent form, paper questionnaire, and then you can do the spit kit there and then. And so you kind of do it all in the same visit. We hope that most people will probably, or we anticipate most people will probably sign up online. But the in-person option is there as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Ben, for doing this and being part of the study, because I honestly do believe that it's needed and is and will be great for the future of MS. And thank you for being here today on the Sick and Sickening podcast and sharing this information. And I hope to speak to you again soon.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Well, it's great. And yeah, hopefully you do this again soon. I think, as we said, if people have questions, then they can put them on the website, or they can ask them directly to me or you. And we could do this, semi regularly and just kind of go through what people are asking. Hey warriors, I hope you just enjoyed the latest episode of the Sick and Sickening podcast, all about MS and genetics. Please like, subscribe and ring the bell above to never miss an episode of the Sick and Sickening podcast, to join me to spill some more tea on MS and autoimmune diseases. Till next time, bye. To partake in the A.D.A.M.S study, please click the link in the description.